Aidan Westwood was once hailed as a prodigy, a standout talent who rode a wave of critical acclaim to the pinnacle of the international art scene. He was a maestro whose bold strokes and vibrant palette had once told tales that captivated audiences worldwide. But as quickly as his star had risen, it had begun to wane. His previously illustrious career stumbled, hitting an insurmountable roadblock as he found himself in the grip of a creative drought. Ideas that used to flood his mind like a torrent were now just a trickling stream. Desperate for a lifeline, Aidan made the decision to retreat from the hustle and bustle of the art world and seek refuge in a remote cabin nestled deep within the vast expanse of the Whispering Woods. He clung to the hope that the silence and solitude of this untouched wilderness could be the key that would unlock the gate barring his dormant creativity. This cabin, shrouded in an undisturbed forest, was the very picture of isolation. Its exterior, scarred by the elements, told a story of years of solitude, reflecting Aidan's own internal isolation. The dimly lit interior, permeated by an air of gloom, seemed to echo the emotions swirling within him. As he began to set up his workspace in this secluded haven, arranging his easel and paints in a ritual that was as familiar as it was poignant, the enormity of the task at hand weighed heavily on him. It wasn't the weight of the quiet surroundings that burdened him. Rather, it was the storm of doubts and fears swirling within his mind. The cabin felt like it was a world away from everything. Its faded exterior and shadowy interior mirrored Aidan's struggle as he tried to overcome his creative block. His doubts and fears seemed to grow louder in the quiet of the woods, a constant reminder of the precipice upon which he now found himself. His paints, once a source of joy and inspiration, were lined up neatly, their vibrant hues seemingly at odds with the monochromatic landscape of his mind. Each color was a stark reminder of what once was, and what could be again, if only he could break through the barrier that had rendered his imagination barren. He wasn't just in the Whispering Woods for some peace and quiet. He was there in a bid to rediscover himself, to unearth the creative spark that he felt had been buried under the weight of his recent struggles. The cabin in the woods was not merely a retreat. It was a chance for Aidan Westwood to reignite his passion and hopefully to set the art world ablaze once more. Days turned to weeks, yet Aidan found no relief from his creative rut. His once confident strokes, which used to dance on canvas with assurance and skill, had now become awkward and hesitant. His mind seemed trapped once more in a void of artistic barrenness, as if a great chasm had opened up, swallowing any spark of inspiration he might have had. As his hope faded, despair took over, creeping in like a chilling fog. With this despair came unsettling visions that grew more intense and disturbing as his condition deteriorated. The boundary between reality and the creeping tide of madness seemed to become more and more indistinct each passing day. The quiet of the cabin was broken by whispers that seemed to float through the air. Their haunting tones offered him a deal, the return of his inspiration at a horrifying cost. These voices were not comforting companions, but rather sinister reminders of his struggle. The shadows in the cabin took on lives of their own, twisting and shifting into distorted shapes that seemed to jeer at his failed attempts to put brush to canvas. In the prison of his mind, the world outside the cabin transformed. The surrounding woods seemed to come to life as if imbued with a sinister spirit. The trees with their rough, gnarled limbs appeared to reach out for him, their warped branches rapping on the cabin's roof like the skeletal fingers of unseen spectres. What Aidan didn't realize was that his broken mental state had stirred up something ominous and supernatural within those woods. A malignant entity, which had lain undisturbed and dormant, was awakened by his escalating madness. This dark force seemed to draw strength from his tormented psyche, each terrifying hallucination feeding it, making it stronger, adding fuel to the nightmarish fire that burned within him. Time seemed to stretch on endlessly as the weeks blurred into months, and Aidan's connection to the real world weakened. The paintings that once brought joy and fulfillment to his life had taken on a grotesque, horrifying nature. They were vivid displays of the dark visions that relentlessly haunted him. The process of creating art, which was once a source of satisfaction, now felt more like a path to self-destruction. The very act that once served as an outlet for his creative spirit had now become a conduit for expressing the darkness that consumed him. As Aidan continued to lose himself to this torment, the malignant entity that had claimed him grew in power. Its influence seeped into the cabin, altering its very fabric. The walls of the cabin seemed to come alive, pulsating, as if they were drawing breath. The floorboards creaked and groaned under unseen pressure, as if echoing Aidan's own agony. At this point, Aidan's sanity hung by a thread, and he was reduced to little more than a puppet. His body and mind were just tools manipulated by the dark force that had taken control of him. As Aidan plunged further into the abyss of insanity, he started to catch brief, unsettling glimpses of the entity that had ensnared him. The creature seemed to be made of shifting shadows and eerie whispers. Its form was unstable and constantly changing. Its eyes were dark voids that appeared to stare straight into Aidan's very soul, radiating an icy, malevolent presence. He could sense its cold touch with every stroke of his brush, its chilling grasp guiding his hand across the canvas. Under the control of this dark entity, Aidan began to work on what was to be his last and most perfect creation, his ultimate masterpiece. It was a horrifying depiction, a disturbing portrayal of the monstrous figures and twisted shapes that had been plaguing him non-stop. It would serve as both his greatest achievement and a chilling final message. His hands moved across the canvas with an energy that bordered on mania. The brush was a blur as it brought to life the nightmarish images that had tormented his waking hours and haunted his dreams. As he added the final horrific details to his macabre masterpiece, the entity chose this moment to reveal its true form. It manifested as a towering, terrifying figure, its body made up of twisting, writhing tendrils and mouths full of sharp teeth that seemed to snap at the air. Its eyes glowed with a twisted pleasure that sent chills down Aidan's spine. Aidan could do nothing but stare in sheer terror at the sight, his grip on reality now utterly broken. The entity edged closer to Aidan, its tentacle-like appendages reaching out to wrap around him. The chilling sensation of its touch filled him with an indescribable fear. As the entity drew him closer, Aidan could feel his very being, his essence, being swallowed up by this monstrous darkness. In the face of such overwhelming horror, Aidan let out a final, raw scream as he was absorbed into the creature. His now finished painting seemed to glow with an eerie, unnatural light, as if the twisted, nightmarish scene it depicted had come alive. Once the horrifying event was over, the cabin fell into a deep, unsettling silence. Even the storm raging outside quieted down, as if paying its respects to the horrifying transformation that had occurred inside. Having satisfied its appetite, the entity withdrew, disappearing back into the mysterious depths of the whispering woods. Many years passed, and the cabin, now deserted, served as a solemn reminder of the terrifying events that took place within its decaying walls. Aidan's final horrifying painting remained untouched, serving as a chilling tribute to his tragic end.